Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. While we're waiting, we're going to listen to a little bit of Simply the Best. And could you please add in the chat, you are simply the best. What would your team say is what you are simply the best at, if that's even a grammatically correct sentence. So if you want, put your name and tell us what is it that you're simply the best that your team would say about you. And we're going to start in about 2 minutes, and I will put the music back on. Yeah, welcome. There's my dear friend Michael. He's like the best in the world. And let's have you think about what your team feels you are simply the best at, with a little music. What are you simply the best at? What would your team say? In your heart, since the start of every night and every day. In your eyes, I get lost, I get washed away. Just as long as one more minute, please. You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone. Hello, everybody. It is exactly on the hour, and I want to respect your time. I'm just going to look right in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Nancy Squicciarini, and I am a facilitator for ECIS. And most importantly, I want to know why you are simply the best. So I have Michael saying that I amplify voices. I hope they'd say from Ryan that I'm good at staying positive and keeping track. And then we also have Jennifer says, I'm organized too. That's always a thing. And then we have Reshma saying, hello everyone, my team tells me that I'm good at listening and giving them dignified respect. Isn't that beautiful? How lovely, lovely. We have Beata saying, I am good at organizing and finding solutions. Beautiful. And then we have Julie saying, I think people would say I'm accountable. So keep on adding those thoughts. What a lovely way to start in terms of getting us together as a community of learners and being here for today. Before we get started, you are going to find in the link a chat. Sorry, I can't even talk today. A link in the chat. A link in the chat with some slides. I always believe that when you go for a 1-hour session, you should have a takeaway, and these are your takeaways. Anytime that you see this yellow icon, you know that you have a copy of this slide in the deck. You can download it, you can keep it, but it's nice to know sometimes when you go to a virtual facilitation like this, there's something on the screen and you're like, oh, I wish I had that. If there's a slide that is not in the deck that you want, just put me in the chat and say, Nancy, I really want that slide. Okay, wonderful. How are we going to be chatting today? Well, we first want to know something about you. This conversation, and we are honored to have Jennifer Abrams with us, is about having hard conversations, and it's really targeted towards middle leaders. Share with us, how much training did you receive prior to starting your position as a middle leader? Did you receive prior to starting your role? You'll notice that there's an icon, so that means you have the link within the slide deck that was shared with you. So please, can you share? Was it intentional, where before even starting and meeting with your team, your school provided some type of training, some reading? Was there some discussion, or did you have none at all? So let me give you a minute, and we'd love to get your feedback. We have 25 of us here, and it would be really good to know what middle leaders are experiencing in terms of the training they receive with having hard conversations. I have to admit, my experience working with middle leaders, this is the area that gets the most discussion. Big. That's why I'm going to give a little story of how I met Jennifer. I'll give you about Jennifer, of course. I'll give you 1 more minute, and let's see the results of what training you have received
as a middle leader? Favor, give me a thumbs up. That tells me that you've done the survey, and that would be really helpful. So can you just do a thumbs up so I can see? Oh, good. We have everybody. Vicki, good to see you again. I'm going to get Vicki with me. We're going to start. Vicki, that's funny. I thought of you last night as well. That's another story. Okay, Vicki. All right, everybody. Let's see the results that you've shared. So right now we have 28 of you here. So if you could put in your vote, it'd be really just knowing this data. So right now, we're getting some more. In terms of intentionality, out of the 28 here, 1 has received training prior to starting their role as a middle leader. 2 had some discussion, and currently we're at 12, stating that they've had absolutely no training prior to. I guess this is why this workshop has really attracted so many people, and wondering what we can do to actually help facilitate middle leaders to get some type of resources and other type of just where do you go when, or what to do with navigating a hard conversation. So thank you for this. Keep on adding. I would love to keep this data because I work with principals, and at times I tell them, your middle leaders really need support navigating these hard conversations. And I can say, you know what? We met with almost 30 international middle leaders, and right now, look at the red column. They have not received training, and this is usually the most difficult part of the job. All right, before I introduce Jennifer, and keep on please telling us. So we know that middle leadership needs this support. Here are 3 ways that ECIS can help you. Number 1, it's the cafe. It's what we're doing right now. Number 2, there are certificate courses that you can then sign up for. And the third is, if you are an ECIS member school, the mentorship platform you have free with your membership. That means if your school is an ECIS member, everyone in your school has access to this mentorship platform. So something to think about. How are we going to talk today? Engage. If you see that Brian is fantastic in a breakout room, you might say, Brian, I would love to meet with you privately. We really want the idea that this conversation sustains afterwards. During the chat, of course, we want that, right? Jen and I keep in touch afterwards. When you're in a breakout room, perhaps put your video on. If you don't want to do it now, understandable, you might be tired. But in the breakout room, sometimes it's nice to see people's faces, and then we'll be able to mute and unmute when we get to bigger discussion. The one thing you might notice is continuing this conversation on social media. We now have, and I think we're one of the first, to have a LinkedIn group only for middle leaders. The articles, the resources are only for middle leaders. You can be an ECIS member school or not. This is open for everyone. So share this link with your staff. It's been really growing. I think we have almost 300 members already, and we've only been up for about 6 weeks. All right, I got to give this intro about Jennifer. Jennifer was one of the first, actually not Jennifer, her books was. So I was teaching a course, and actually it was for PTC, and I was doing hard conversations, and one of the resources that was mentioned was we have to go, and as a resource, we have to have hard conversations. Then I became an assistant principal, and my role as assistant principal for almost 10 years was only working with middle leaders. I met with them every other week for an hour and a half, developing leadership capacity. And one of the first books that we used, and this is, I want to say over 10 years ago, was really having hard conversations. And this was my team. And you might notice in the back, there's an arrow. Jennifer was actually in the room, and we were having, she was probably in the front, and we invited her to the school. And what I felt was the most impactful about Jennifer was it wasn't a one-off. We read the book, we had conversations. She came back several times working with Chapters International. Then a few years later, the lower school, I was upper school, heard about Jennifer's work, and then she started working with the lower school. So we've had a relationship with Jennifer at the International School of Luxembourg, I want to say for over a decade, between her coming to working with middle leadership, doing Chapters International, and then working with the lower school. And I have to say, her resources have made the biggest impact when it came to middle leadership. I teach a course that is building and leading teams. And I have to admit, I use her book as a resource for every time I teach this course. So Jennifer knows I love to plug her. So it's just. Then afterwards, I have to admit, Jennifer and I just became friends from different events. So, and I feel privileged that she's not just someone that I respected greatly as a, really between her research and an author, I now call her my friend. So that's why I'm thrilled that she can be here. Please, you'll notice that this link is, this slide with the link is in your slide deck. Could everyone please go to the website? Because one thing I would really love you to do is to please sign up for her newsletter and do it right now. There is, she gets, what is it called, Jennifer?
Voice lessons.
Voice lessons. And it's brilliant. I read it. I send it to middle leaders. It's absolutely a newsletter that I would recommend highly, and make sure it doesn't go into your spam or something. So I hope everyone was able to register. All right, let's talk about how we're going to navigate today. Jennifer and I are going to talk for about 20 minutes, and the questions are questions that were submitted by middle leaders. On LinkedIn and on Twitter, I did a call out. And I said, listen, everybody, I'm going to meet with Jennifer. I'd rather use your questions than questions that I could make up. So all the questions we're doing is from those that were submitted from LinkedIn and Twitter. And then we're going to break. You're going to meet with people for 10 minutes. We come back and we'll have 2 breakout sessions. During the breakout session, this is your reflection. You can either say, from listening to Jennifer, what was tried and true? Number 2, you can say what was totally new. Or number 3, you could say what is next. What do you feel from listening to Jennifer you're going to do next? We have 2 breakout rooms, so you can do one prompt twice, or you can do 2 different ones. It's up to you. But these are the prompts that we're using for the breakout rooms, and you already have a copy of this. All right, I'm going to stop sharing because I've been talking for exactly 9 minutes, and now it's time to stop. So everybody, let's give Jennifer a very big viral say hello. You can unmute.
Hello, everybody. Good morning from my hotel room in Napa, California. It's happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Jennifer, I just love that you're here. Thank you. So I'm going to start right in. Everyone, excuse me. I have the questions written down. I am going to read them off. I didn't memorize them. Sorry. And what as I mentioned, these are questions that were submitted from LinkedIn. So I just love that idea that they're coming. All right, Jennifer, let me get these questions. And by the way, if you have a question, put it in the chat. Just let us know, or you can just put your hand up and ask Jennifer a question. This is really one that we want you to engage in. All right, Jen. First question that was asked. Ready? Why are middle leaders in a different predicament when having a hard conversation compared to members of senior leadership? What's your thoughts on that one?
So my boyfriend, Stuart Levine, who also wrote a book called Getting to Resolution. So you can only imagine that the two of us have hard conversations because we're both communications consultants. I agreed with him. We were in the car talking about that yesterday. We are in a different predicament as middle leaders, and not so much in other ways as well. The presupposition that we are in a different predicament means that we think that senior leaders know what they're doing. And I will let you know, with great love and respect to people who are in senior leadership, they don't know how to have hard conversations either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just don't make yourself feel worse because, oh, I'm a middle level leader, I don't know how to do this. They must have the answer, the special sauce. Don't think that. Okay. We're all on a journey to figure out how to have a humane growth producing conversation. They may have an increased level of responsibility in terms of evaluation and supervision. And to that end, they might feel a greater sense that they must do it based on tasks that they have to complete. But that doesn't mean that they know any more about it than we do. Okay. I think that because we are in a team at a collaborative and peer level, we feel less less ready, or that it's our job. And so it's harder for us to think we should have hard conversations. But given the questions that that Nancy sent me, I think we'll talk about that there's needs to be culture there. But don't think that they know what they're doing.
I love that. You know what? Have that confidence in yourself, knowing that you could have this conversation. And it actually leads into the next question. And you brought up a good point as well, is many times these hard conversations, when looking at these hard conversations, what do you feel you need to have? And why do middle leaders, and it kind of relates, hesitate to have them? So
yeah,
when it comes to those conversations, yes, the one area they said is because senior leadership versus middle leadership. But what are the other hesitations that middle leaders have about engaging in these type of discussions?
So I think we want to be liked. We have a very strong sense that we want to build rapport with our team. We certainly don't want to be seen as somebody who's sort of not a part of it. And so we want to build that rapport and have a sense of respect. We also probably have a sense of perfectionism. We have this fear that if I don't say it well, it will completely fracture the whole relationship. And so there's that piece to it. We might think we're too sensitive. Maybe I'm just experiencing this and maybe I'm wrong. We distrust ourselves, I think, a lot at different points. I'm just a middle leader. The word just shows up for me all the time. There are many tensions I talk about in my book, and all of them are for everybody, but there might be special middle level leader things. And that doesn't mean they're set in stone. I want you to recognize that you have to hold the tension and then say, is that actually a competing commitment that's going to win? Bob Keegan and Lisa Lasko-Leahy talk about competing commitments. I'm committed to being the best educator, the best middle level leader I can be. I'm committed, but I want to be liked. So I don't see that I can do both, right?
Exactly.
Is it accurate? Is it true? And can you experiment, right? So there are many tensions. They're not going to go away. Question is, I think there was another question, and I'm going to go into this right now, is what will rebalance that seesaw? So I'm going to speak up. And I think that if I see something that is educationally or professionally unsound, or I see something that's physically unsafe, or I see something that is emotionally damaging, I may speak up. And when I do, I'm not yelling. So please understand that hard conversations, and the word hard is hard. It could be crucial. It could be essential. It could be necessary, whatever word works for you. If I need to have that kind of conversation, I'm not yelling with an exclamation point. I'm saying something with a period.
I love that. That's a very the tensions that middle leaders have. It's also the difference of when, if you were a middle leader who was appointed, so you are coming to the school new, it's different than someone who was originally on the team and then suddenly you were appointed. So your friends that a year ago that you might have been going out with, you go out every Friday for pizza, and now you have a role and responsibility. That also creates that tension because suddenly my good friend, my colleague, I now am responsible for ensuring that there's moderated grading, and that's that tension. So then this leads to what should be in place then as a middle leader. What should be in place to help me navigate these hard conversations, knowing that, I mean, let's say we talk about norms, that was one suggestion, but what would you suggest that with the middle leader, especially those, because how many people in this room became a middle leader within the same school that you work at? Can you just give a thumbs up? Let's see. We have a few. It's a different challenge. Yes. So can you add a little bit more about that, please?
What needs to be in place?
Exactly.
To me, I think, and I say this, and that's where the conversation kind of extended because we were driving from the Bay Area up to Napa yesterday. Clarity before accountability, clarity.
Love that.
Agreements? What is the social contract? What might we have already shaped as our obligations? What we're going to do? So it isn't personal, it is what we had all agreed to. And there's a lot of fear that we are being patronizing or diminishing if we have to spell out things.
Right.
And that's actually not true. I think that there's an operations manual, a set of tasks, what we have all agreed that we are responsible to be doing. Having said that, we're just holding each other to what we had decided, to what we have been told, right? I mean, it might say in the International School of Luxembourg says you have to come to work at 7 a.m. and you do A, B, and C. It's not personal because you may not be in this position next year, and that person will still have to do that, right? It's not about us. Now, having said that, if Nancy called me an idiot in a meeting, it is between the two of us. It feels personal, but it's also that the team agreed that wouldn't be said. So it's also, again, not about us. It's about an agreement that the team has.
So in strategy for everyone out there, one is to have norms, is to have those agreements, is to have those understandings prior to, I want to say clarity before
accountability.
So those of you who have norms, how often do you bring them up at your meeting? How often are they visible at every meeting? I don't mean on top of a letterhead. I'm talking about visual.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it could be at the bottom of it could be one slide that we just remember. It could be at the bottom of an agenda.
Exactly.
It doesn't need, it's just take a minute. We're tired. It's 3:30.
Exactly.
We're hypoglycemic. Sometimes we don't kind of self-manage. And in my stretching book, I talk about emotional pollution. And what I mean by that is that you kind of ooze some drama because you're tired, you're hungry, whatever. We have to have some agreements that say, hey, no pig penning, that kind of thing.
I love that. I love that. And clarity, I love it. And this might be something when we go into the breakout room in a few minutes. How well do you have clarity in terms of your essential agreements, your norm? How visible? Are they documented? Are they communicated? Are they monitored? Love that, Jennifer. Great strategy. Now, this question, I just love this question. And it's the idea of, I'm going to read this exactly as the person wrote it. I'm younger than some of my colleagues, and sometimes I feel they don't take me seriously and think they know better, which sometimes they do due to experience. How do I overcome this hurdle and get them to respect me?
Okay. So, and shameless plug for a book called The Being Generationally Savvy. I think it was called The Multi-Generational Workplace. I forget what I titled this idea. This idea of our age is totally present, right? That people have been there for a while. They're not going anywhere until they retire. There's somebody named David Rock. I have a cognitive crush on a guy named Dr. David Rock. And he has this idea called the SCARF model. And I'm going to put David, and I'm sure that, so David Rock, I can put, I'm writing David Rock SCARF model. He talks about psychological triggers. He's a neuropsychologist. That psychological triggers happen for all of us, right? And he has 5, but one that he speaks to is status. That if we feel that we are not acknowledged, recognized, valued, or seen for our status, which could be institutional history, age, time in the classroom, years of awareness around being in that school. If we don't have that, it physiologically damages us. And so might we end up being fully aware of specific things that we can do that are not to kiss up, not to be inauthentic, to go, well, clearly you've been here longer than me, so I'm sure we should, I mean, no attitude like that, but to clearly say, we value perspectives and institutional history, and we all want to contribute, right? And we all have these norms now. I call that being 2 feet in the present. So we need to just acknowledge status and have clarity. Having said that, what I'm going to do, a little freebie, is I'm going to put into the chat something called "What if they say?" Okay, because they may push back at you. You never, you always, and there might be a generational thing to this. Okay, there might be. I'm putting it in. I'm going to open. Here we go. What if they say? But it also might just be that they're using. And I say this with great respect. I'm 56. This is all gray under here. Okay. There are moments when we just like it as is, and that still doesn't mean that we don't get to behave well. So it isn't about age. It is really about holding people to what are the expectations, regardless of our age. I'm not saying you're 23 years old, 25, you got this job, and some 56-year-old isn't going to come with their reading glass and go, what the heck do you know? Okay. They're not going to do that. And not but, not however, and everybody needs to behave in a respectful, humane, and growth-producing way. So I love that. And believe me, I just was listening in the States, so I'd have to find the data. It was just yesterday that I was reading about it. Baby boomers, pretty soon, not so much in the schools as much as Gen Z. Yeah. So you're in an interesting moment, and give it a few years.
Beautiful. You know what I think? Right now, you've just received some strategies in terms of clarity before accountability. In the chat, download What If They Say. Yeah. Jennifer also mentioned David Roth and SCAR. So we're going to have a breakout. Now, during this breakout, you have 3 options of what to share. You can either think of what was tried and true, maybe you've used norms, or you might even talk about what was new to you. And lastly, after listening to Jennifer this past few 20 minutes, what is next for you? You have this slide. So we're going to put you in for 10 minutes. Choose one of these or 2 of these, and there's 4 in a room. There will be a 60-second countdown, so there'll be 9 minutes with 60 seconds. And please introduce yourselves. Please, if you can as well, put your camera on. It's always nice to look at people's eyes when you talk to them. I understand in the bigger room, but please in the smaller room. So Abby, we are ready for 4 in a room. No more than 4 to 3, please. Thank you. Enjoy this conversation.
What would you like me to do? Should I go in or no? What's the norm?
Whatever you feel comfortable with, it doesn't matter. I mean, they might just love seeing you. Yeah, because you're like a rock star.
Oh, all right. I'm jumping in. I'm just going to jump.
All right. And say hello. Perfect. Thanks. We have Sonia.
I'll go to Michael and Vicky because somebody didn't go in, so I'll go in.
Okay. Thank you. Sonia, can you get into a breakout room? This will be 2. Welcome back. Angelica, nice to see you. Kay, Lama. If Jennifer gets back, she might be lost in virtual land of the lost. That's it. Virtual land of the lost. They're coming back in 9 seconds, everyone. So thank you. And everyone's wonderful.
I am not able to hear you, Nancy. Is anyone else facing the same problem?
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes.
can hear people.
There we go. Perfect. There we go. Hey, if they were in the chat, give a shout out or a thank you to the people in your breakout room. Just, I always believe in notes of gratitude, NOG. Just say hello, say thank you, pleasure conversation, or something that really resonated with you. So just let's get some love in the chat, everyone. Put something in there, just sharing. What is it that you gained from that conversation and meeting maybe 2 to 3 new educators that you haven't met before and you might continue talking to afterwards? Lovely. Let's get that love in the chat. Wonderful. Thank you all. Love to Brian and Claire. Wonderful. So add something in the chat, please. Jennifer, I'm going to continue our conversation. Oh, I love it. Interesting conversations. This question came up, which was, how do I de-escalate a conversation when someone approaches me and is already in a state of mind that is not effective for a conversation? What strategies should I use to de-escalate that type of situation?
I'm so excited. So, this is where, to me, I need an outcome map. Okay, so the outcome map is from Garmston and Wellman, and I put it in my book, and it's 6 questions. And I'm going to see if I can put just a 1-pager of an outcome map into the chat. If you are working on paraphrasing, person's already like on the ceiling, already on the ceiling. Okay, I have 6 questions in order. Actually, I have 3. I have 3. Don't even worry about it. I have 3 questions that I want to hear you. And it's obviously, you're like at the ceiling. Talk to me. What exactly is the problem? And see if they can express the problem in a way that you can hear it in any way. If they've got some words that are already stinging, try to, be in a space of making it into a professional thing. You know what I mean? Like re-paraphrase. Okay. Re-paraphrase them so that they sound better than they sound.
I love it.
And say, okay, clearly this is not working for you. So what you're saying then, second question, what do you want to see instead? And you can even re-paraphrase. So what you're saying is that you're like this, blah, 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 and you want this. Is that right? And they may say no, and they might kind of spin with you for a while, but you're bringing them down. Okay. Oh, good. So there's the outcome map log. Good. That's great. Now, can you give me some things that we can do in order for that to happen and for it to be better? Mm-hmm. What would you like? So if parents call, Johnny's not happy. It's so overwhelming, right? They're so hurt. They're so upset. Their kid isn't doing well. About what? Unhappy when? Unhappy about what? Is it about the English class, the math class, the whatever? Is it about this kid that's sitting next, like narrow it down and then start to say, so what would make it all better? What are the things that could be done or said? And you're trying to get them to be a problem solver with you. Mm-hmm. The problem I think that we have is that we think it's diminishing and we think it's rude, or that we're so frustrated, we just can't believe we have to spell it out for somebody. They should just already be doing it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And actually we need help. So I was upset at an old boyfriend, right? So I'm just telling the story. I'm upset at an old boyfriend and I'm like, you are not connecting with me. You are not being a good boyfriend. And I just don't sense that we're together. We're like not connecting. Right? Thing had no idea what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And in the end, what would have helped was more texts. And in that vein, texts that talk about this. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, as opposed to saying, you're not connecting with me, you're a terrible boyfriend, to get down to, I would love 2 more texts a day. Mm-hmm. That's like doable, man. Mm-hmm. Like he may not want to do it, and we might have a conversation about that, but it's not judging something so big. So bring people off the ceiling by asking and paraphrasing, what's the problem? What do you want to see instead? And can you give me some specifics?
I love that. And also the outcome map, I thought was also useful when knowing you're going to go into a difficult conversation to ensure that. So for all your middle leaders, if you know that you're going into a hard conversation, this outcome map can be used for you to frame that conversation. Thinking about, so if you do have a colleague that might have multiple issues that's going on in your team, when you're meeting, focus on one. Don't try to talk about being late for the meetings, then interrupting people during conversations, or not showing up for moderated grading. You need to focus on one. So that was one thing I have to admit. This was I used this with the middle leaders in Luxembourg, and it was really powerful because we did have some leaders who were younger than many of their team members, and they felt intimidated. Exactly what you were saying about the generation. And I told them, don't go into this hard conversation without being prepared. And the outcome map, Jennifer, you're beautiful. You put the one-page outcome map in there. And
I also put the SCARF article. I put the SCARF
article. Wonderful. You have both in there. Everyone download this. Look at all these resources you're getting. And to use this as a frame in terms of that conversation, the intentionality of it, because one word you said, Jennifer, which I love, is the idea of humanity, ensuring that you keep the humanity of a conversation. And that resonates, I think, with everyone when thinking about here's a question, how do you maintain humanity when your leadership team is not modeling the behavior that you expect from your own team? I'm not saying this is a common practice, but many times I have middle leaders who say, how do you navigate that conversation with the senior leadership when you know it's going to be very difficult because they're not modeling the behavior that are actually the school norms or the expectations? How do you not challenge, but how do you bring this up with the senior leader?
Well, I have no immediate response. I don't know where that question came from. I think the idea of saying to people, even with their senior leadership, I want as a team lead to do what's right for students and to do what's right for the school. And it helps when all adults that were working together have some common agreements of how we're going to do it, so that it feels like, or it just feels easier for me to be a collaborative team member. And I'm just thinking about my stretching. I just wrote a book about the concept of professionalism and that adults need to model, because we're not just, I have this quote, it's not my quote. Somebody's learning how to be a person by watching us.
Beautiful.
Kids are watching us. New teachers are watching us. People are looking to the actions of the leadership team to say, oh, this is how we roll here. We have a mission, but we actually don't live it out.
I love it.
We have a whatever. And so it's huge. It's a huge thing to actually say, I think that it isn't just about what we do, it's how we do it. And might we end up just focusing on that, because it will really help me be able to do my work better. That's also outcome mapping up, to be really honest. If you have a suggestion or a request for those in upper management, you map. Here's the challenge that I'm facing where I'm at. Here's what would help me. I have some requests. And so, and that's fine. It isn't, you guys don't know what you're doing. You are totally hypocritical.
Exactly.
None of that, but it's about in order for me to do my work better, because I really want to champion what's going on at the school, it would really help if these things were done, or if these things were offered to me. And it could be tactical, and it could be linguistic, and it could be emotional support. Doesn't matter.
Love it. Now, before they go back into a breakout room to talk about either the outcome map or which strategies have they used to work with leadership, I have a question for you, which is a little bit, I'm going rogue right now.
Hey, rogue, what's new?
People going towards the holidays, and when they get back in January, it's the start of a new year.
Yeah.
And people and teams are coming back, everyone had their holiday. What would you suggest for a team that now they're starting a new school year, and it's almost related to one of the questions that we had, what should be the prequel in order to inform teams that having hard conversations is a normal part of teaming.
Yeah.
What would you suggest in January? People are coming back after the holiday to acknowledge that having hard conversations is just part of teaming. And how would you how do you present this to a team?
Mm-hmm. It's like, how do we want to be? I just put in the chat, who do we want to be as we move into this year?
Oh, I love that. Absolutely.
How have you changed? Who do we want to be? And I would suggest that we want to be the adults that model for kids a growth mindset. I would say that we want to be the adults that live out the skills that we're noticing given the global challenges that we're facing, that we need to, and these are just two things. Two things. One is to be able to suspend certainty, or more willingly that our way is a way, not the way. And how do we stay more open-minded? And then when we hear things, might we build our resiliency and our social and emotion and have better social emotional hygiene so that we don't emotionally pollute and bring in disappointment and or frustration in ways that isn't helpful. I'm not saying you shouldn't be vulnerable and bring that in, but I think that we need to do that in a more adult way. So for me, I would say it's a perfect time to stretch at our edges. It's a perfect time to rededicate ourselves to our norms, or to really or remember. And remember, we got to revisit, remember ourselves. That to me, I think, is a huge thing. It's not, it's a new year, right? So we can use that. You can use any time, the end of a quarter, the beginning of a new year, to just revisit. It's not just about what we do, it's how we do it.
I love that idea. So it's trying to be, imagine a big takeaway, bring your norms back out. Use that as a criteria to measure the success of how well are we adhering to our norms. And that could be a great self-reflection for the team. I love, Jennifer, you're so good. Everybody, we're going to go for our last little chat because it's already 10 minutes before do you know what we might do? I don't know if we want a breakout room or if anybody just wants to ask a question to Jennifer before you go into the breakout room. You can just unmute. I know we have about 20 people here, but please, if you have a question for Jennifer about either the resources, SCAR, outcome map, what do we talk about in terms of clarity before accountability? Your thoughts so far. What are you thinking? I see some people ready to unmute, share, and you can just unmute yourselves if you want to. This is the quiet part.
I know.
This is when we're. Any thoughts so far?
You can go into
I think if no, Brian, go for it.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm interested in, when it comes to difficult conversations, and you mentioned CLT before. What do you do about the difficult conversation of when your colleagues are kind of jumping, as I've heard it referred to before? So you've got people in your team who are bypassing you or other channels and taking their issue elsewhere. What's the kind of calm, professional way of addressing that situation?
Are you being generous by actually saying that they're bypassing you? So does that mean that they are gossiping, or they're going up into the hierarchy because they're going to the head? And what are the issues you're talking about?
It might be specifically, right, if something happens within the department that hasn't gone the way that the particular individual wants it to. And so the next step for them is to kind of, okay, I'll just go somewhere else for my outcome.
Sure. So we have to go to mommy or daddy at the head of the school because we're going to move up to them. So I think that's an interesting question of what are the agreements with the person if they're gonna jump you and go to the head of school, we need to have an agreement with them that just like you would do if the head got a call from a parent, that they would probably say, have you spoken to the teacher? Right? You know what I mean? That needs to just be reconfirmed, that this is how it works. But also I know people are going to be frustrated by different decisions. This is how, if you are still wanting to express something, you want to share something, please continue to try to do that in a humane and growth producing way with those in the meeting. And if they know, and to me, it's about the norm of, and the anticipation of, because people are going to go gossip. They're going to go and try to kind of think it through with people. They've got to kind of know they're not crazy and that they're okay, that they're venting, and that's all fine. The question is, when we jump to somebody that's above us in the hierarchy to get a different result, that all needs to be kind of already handled. Like that person, the head needs to know. That's a tricky one because maybe that person wants to be the savior and always wants to do that. So then there's a hard conversation with that person as well.
That's a really hard conversation. Jennifer, thank you, Brian. And that is a hard conversation. It's just going up to that person and saying,
right,
you shouldn't be doing this. You need to tell them to come to me. And that's a hard conversation.
That's it. But look at how clean you said that right there.
Jennifer, I have 2 questions in the chat. One was asking, how can you have a conversation about career progression with a narcissistic line manager?
A narcissistic lying manager. So the person wants to move up and needs that person's support.
Exactly. In order to move forward in a position, how do you start that type of conversation?
Oh, wow. If we're going to have to use, if I'm going to work within that context,
right?
And if that person needs to know that they are the helpful person to you, that by helping them, they get accolades by, it's I suppose like massaging that other person's ego. But if they're lying, that's
they're not lying. It's more of an ego. So I think your suggestion is you might have to just play up to their ego.
Play up to their ego. It would be, I so value your,
I value your support.
I value your support. I so need your guidance. I so need guidance. What are your thoughts about this? How might I move forward? What are you thinking? Is there any way you can help me with that? So that they feel like they're bringing you in, right? Now, I don't know if that's, I don't know, it just makes me kind of sick saying that, but yeah, that if you're working with somebody who is in a narcissistic space, you have to be aware that they love status and they love, being the person that's the person.
That's a suggestion, just saying, I need your support, I need your guidance. How would you recommend that I move forward, trying to elevate who they are? So it's still truthful. They are your line manager. They must have some type of experience. It actually leads to the other question that was put in the chat. How do you deal with a member of the senior leadership team who is not, wow, this is a tough one.
Yeah, always. I can see that. And that's an interesting thing of, they're not always truthful, meaning they ate 2 donuts, not 3, or they stole just $25, not 50. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to decide what the level is.
Right.
So I think there's a valence to that. There's a degree of intensity that I'm not quite. I think if it is professionally, if they are not truthful and it is professionally unsound or physically unsafe, or there's financial malfeasance or something, then we got to address that with somebody else. But if it's not always truthful, like, well, I said this, I said that, stand for what you stand for and just say, well, this is what I think we agreed to, and I'm going to put this in writing and blah, blah, but it's a different thing. I just need to know what they're not truthful about.
True.
Well,
it's already 56. Jennifer, you're amazing. Oh, here's a good one. from Vicky. Was able to do a deep dive into Jen's book, Stretching Your Learning Edges Growing Up, your book that you mentioned. So powerful and helpful. Thank you, Vicky, for writing that. I highly recommend it, everyone, Stretching Your Edges. So appreciate it. So that was a shout out to you, Jen, for Vicky, who just read your book. Well done. All right, everyone, before we go, let's make a commitment. What will you do because of this webinar, because of this session? What do you feel like you've been inspired to? You've been given the SCARP model. You've been given the outcome map. We talked about the importance of norms and reinforcing those norms and thinking about what you will do in January. So what do you feel like from this hour that we are privileged that you shared with us? What will you do next? Type it in the chat, but don't press return yet. Let's see. And we're going to have this cascade before we go. What will you do next? And please make sure you download those articles that were, what I'll do is after this, I'll put a LinkedIn post and I will also put it on our Middle Leader LinkedIn group, the resources that Jennifer shared, just in case you did not get it now. So please put your thoughts. What will you do after, because of this session with Jennifer? And 1, 2, 3, everyone press return. Someone says they're going to buy your book. Reinforce what we're doing this year. Start with new activities, who and what we want to be. I love that. That was a great one, Michael. Thank you. Try out the outcome map. Please do. January, an opportunity to start fresh with our relationships, with hard conversations. PD sessions support middle leaders. Absolutely. Jennifer's available. I'm available if you ever want us to come by. We're always here to support middle leaders. So everyone, it's time to go. And this is where, first of all, I'm wishing you a fabulous holiday. I think soon we will be getting some much needed relaxing time from school. I can see some people smiling. And, oh yes, Jennifer also put some videos in there. I know that most people don't have their video on, but this is a tradition I do at the end of every session, is a high five to say thank you. So those of you who I can see your hands, put your hands up. And we are going to do on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. High five! Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Michael, what? You have your hand up. Oh, Michael, you appeared twice, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, I thought it was a mystery. I messaged this Michael Newman and said, hey, someone same name. I shared this link with one of my colleagues, and she texted me being like, it's me. So that was the mystery. I was wondering who it was.
You're beautiful, Michael. Everyone, it's a privilege that you took this hour with us. Jennifer, you're fabulous. Please make sure that you sign up for Jennifer's newsletter. Look at her books. There's a blog in there as well. Join the LinkedIn group. Everybody, it's time to go. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.